Perfect. Time being 2 p.m., let's call this Commissioners Board briefing to order, September 21, 2022. As I was walking in the door, Bill asked if he could start off, if you don't mind. He said it would be very short.
It is.
So, Bill Sargent, go ahead.
Yesterday I was going through the list of county councils, they publish a list every year, and I looked down and whereas Wheeler County Attorney was an old friend of mine, an acquaintance, colleague that I've seen in the land use field many times working on behalf of applicants by the name of Daniel Kern. So I thought, nice to see he's come over and started to work for the good guys. And so I Googled him. And he's still doing land use, he's doing a lot more government work, and I saw also that one of his specialties, in fact, probably his specialty was short-term rentals.
Ooh.
That he's involved with Lincoln County, with Clatsop County, he represents the city of Hood River.
Okay,
And
wow.
they've been going through.
Those are the big ones.
Yeah, so
Right along
anyway,
with us.
and the short-term rental ordinance revision and pause, as you know, has been a big item of discussion for all you guys, and it's gonna be more so. And, however that works out, there's always this background issue of are we gonna get sued for what we do? And, so we wanna be, try to come up with something that sooner, when it gets to the end, that's, hopefully not gonna result in that, and if it does, we're able to, defend it.
Okay.
So anyway, I called Dan, and and I talked to Joel about this, and I talked to Sarah about this, and floated the idea of him maybe coming on board and helping with the short-term rental ordinance revisions. And I know that on the October 11th meeting, there's some intention to discuss some of the legal ramifications of the ordinance. Anyway, long story short, this guy's really competent. Joel and I were confident, but at least I think we are. We're not as
I'm not gonna say it.
we're not land use experts to begin with, and we're certainly not short-term rental land use experts. So I called Dan. He charges $250 an hour. He'd love to help the county out. Unless I hear some strong, no, don't do it, he's gonna send a retainer agreement and we'll bring it forward so you all can discuss it and deliberate and we can bring it up next Wednesday and you can decide whether you think it's a good idea or not. But, I think it'll take a little bit of the pressure off of Joel and I, not that we can't handle it, we will if we need to, but, and it also gives, an independent guy who's got background to, kind of oversee the process. So, that's where I'm headed, and I just wanted the board to know, I discussed it briefly with Commissioner Starr, since she's, point person, I guess, for that whole process. And, so we're I think it would be a good idea. You can kick it around in detail at your meeting next Wednesday.
Great.
So knowing that he's kind of a specialist in this area,
Yep.
working with the biggies, the Hood River and Lincoln and Clatsop,
Yep.
and maybe now Tillamook, I can't see any downside. I would appreciate.
No, the only downside, of course, is monetary.
Yep.
That's the downside. You gotta pony up, some more money for legal fees. His rate, $250, I think, is
Reasonable.
today's
It
marketplace is fairly reasonable. It is reasonable.
Yeah.
So, that's the only downside that I see is monetary and how it affects your budget, which it will in some part, but, maybe he knows something right off the cuff too that Joe or I, or me primarily, since I'm an hourly employee too, I gotta go spend, half a day trying to figure it out that, he knows because he's dealt with it.
And he may already have been developing ordinances for those other counties, so he won't be inventing the wheel.
He was heavily involved in writing the ordinance for the city of Hood River, and yes, he was.
Great.
And he's involved in the LUBA appeals in Lincoln County.
And I think it was really helpful because, you know, the committee and regular attendees from the public to that committee have a lot of questions because it's been approached one way in Lincoln County, it's being approached a completely different way in Clatsop County. And so as we seek to figure out from a risk perspective, from a what will be most effective in our community's perspective, all of those things, having someone who can answer their questions, I think would be super helpful. Whereas I think unfortunately for Bill and Joel, the questions are likely to come up and Bill and Joel are likely to say, we need to do a little research and see what the case law on that says.
Precisely.
Whereas I think this attorney could probably say the case law on that says, you know, for the presentation in particular that we're talking about, but then ultimately as we try to determine as a county where our risk is the greatest and which steps are likely to put us more at risk and less at risk, it would be great to have a specialist. So when Bill brought it to me, I thought I liked the sound of that. You know, we have amazing county council that have to be generalists because there's too many things the county has to deal with on a daily basis.
Yeah.
But this area of the law is becoming more specialized with every legal decision, i.e. Lincoln County, that comes along.
So you know, that I'm proceeding and on Wednesday, you know, he's ready to go. I'll float the idea with him formally on next Wednesday.
So I was gonna ask you to run it by Sean Blanchard and Rachel Haggerty. I think I see Rachel up there.
Rachel, you just can't stay away.
And Sean's traveling, I think. She might be on the phone.
Hey! Hey! Where you been?
I'm never going to participate in the board briefing remotely. I
Look at that.
Oh, so good
No, it's the first time working it, but it seems to make a lot of sense.
Okay, good, yeah.
And I think that's what we're looking at in a lot of our projects is contracting out just to have more capacity where we can do it.
Perfect, okay.
Yeah, it does make sense to me. And because so many different communities are doing different things, I think to have somebody who's expert, who's studying the things that are happening all over the place, like just last week maybe I read about what Oahu County is doing, you know, which is totally fascinating. They've taken some neighborhoods and said, we don't want short-term rentals in these neighborhoods at all. And so if you rent a short-term rental in Kailua now, it has to be for 90 days or more. So that's how they're getting around that. And so it's fascinating. But I think somebody who's collecting all that data, that'll be really valuable.
I think he would pay for it. So.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you for bringing
Yeah,
that
we don't
forward.
make decisions here, but
Sure.
appreciate you bringing it up to us.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay.
Good to see you, Rachel.
Yeah, welcome back. Oh, you're frozen on the screen now.
Oh, I took my camera off.
Oh.
I'm working remote tomorrow, and then I'll be in for a couple hours on Friday.
Great.
All right, good.
How was your conference?
It was awesome.
Good.
This was really, really good.
Oh, good.
Super.
Glad to hear.
Excellent.
Hold on to your seats. I got a lot of stuff.
Okay, here we go.
Game on.
Here we go. Okay, quit sending you to conferences, my God. Okay, so it's my understanding that Commissioner Scar has to be out of here by 3:30.
Mm-hmm.
So we do have one essential bit of business today,
Yep.
not business as it is, but business license ordinance. So Commissioner Bell is going to handle this.
Well, the issue is that we have said a couple times now that we were going to read this over, submit any potential changes. In order to pass it, we need to have 2 public hearings, of course. And the EDC's goal was to have this passed potentially before the end of the year and then start it at the first of the calendar year.
Perfect.
So I'm just checking back in to see where we're at on the process, if you've had a chance to read it, if you have recommended changes.
Yes to both. I've read it and I do. I have questions and comments on it.
Okay. And also, do we want to schedule another workshop with Terry Cooper to go through our changes, or do we just want to submit them to her, or how would you like to proceed?
Well, personally, I think having another workshop with her is gonna be important, because most of mine are questions, not
Okay.
changes.
Okay,
Because I don't understand quite the implications.
okay, and I may not be able to answer that, so I think this could be, the short answer is, let's have another workshop with
Okay.
Terry. She's on vacation today, I called her to see if she could be
Yeah.
with us today, but she can't, so.
So let's go through this section by section, and then we can talk about questions we have by each section.
Because we may
Would that
solve
be
some
okay?
on our
Yeah,
own.
we might.
Okay.
Okay, so, section 1 title, I don't think there's any issue there. Section 2 purpose, again, I think that's pretty much makes sense. Section 3 applicability, again, I don't have any.
I have a question
anything
there.
Sure.
And my question there is simply that it says, when I read that paragraph, I would assume that as a nonprofit, I can now put this away. Because it says that shall be construed to apply to any person transacting, carrying on business. Nothing in this ordinance shall be construed to apply to any person transacting and carrying on business within Tillamook County, which is exempt from taxation.
So I don't think that's true, because later on, and I have that highlighted.
Correct,
Later
so-
on, it talks about nonprofits.
Correct, and so my only thing
It
is,
exempts them, doesn't it?
well, it exempts
Not
them from
getting a
payment.
license.
It exempts them from paying, but it doesn't exempt them from participating.
They must
They still have to get one, so I think it's just, recognizing that we don't want nonprofits to throw this away at that point and think they are, don't need one.
Yep.
That makes sense.
Good point.
Okay. Okay. So, section 4 definitions, I have one question, and that goes to something that is not in the definition section. It is the license administrator. I'm pretty sure that means, Tillamook County Economic Development Commission.
So a license administrator is C on page 1, means Tillamook County Board of Commissioners or its designee.
So we could designate EDC.
That's the license administrator, is that what you just asked about?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and I was going alphabetically, so I looked at I and J, license and licensee. And I see, well, there's no license administrator, so we,
It was alphabetized by day.
It's in the beginning, okay.
Alphabetized by day, but there is a fee administrator listed later
Okay.
that does not exist in the definition, which I think means probably license administrator.
Okay.
Okay.
And that would be on page 5, I was gonna get to that when we got section 10, page 5, where it talks about the transfer of the license,
Okay. Mhm.
application to the fee administrator, so I think it probably just was a copy and paste, missed the fee part.
Okay.
So when we look at the definition of license administrator, and now I need to go back and look at all the areas that I highlighted license administrator. Would we, so is it our thought that the license administrator would be our designee? And in this instance, the Warren County EDC?
I would think so.
I would think so, and that just leaves it open so that in the future, should EDC not be that for some reason, not that I can think of what one would be, we have to figure out.
It's my recollection, that I worked with Terry on this quite a bit, and, it was my feeling that she intended to perform that role, so, you can
That's
ask
what I was
her.
thinking all along.
Yeah.
But ultimately, so let's continue with that conversation if we could. I understand and I agree with that. But ultimately, it is the determination of the Board of Commissioners that is going to be overriding everything, correct? Okay,
Yeah,
all right, good.
Because it's a county license, it's not an EDC license.
right.
Okay. For some reason I had H highlighted, but I don't think I have any questions there. Okay, so, let's go to section 5, license required. Questions, comments?
On point E, it says the county or license administrator may require proof of state registration. Do we really want that to be May?
It could be that, if we're coordinating with cities that have licenses, they will already have that. That's what I was thinking. That, you know, if we don't need it, we won't require it.
So we're talking, like a city license as well as a county license?
Oh, what I believe we're talking about is coordinating with the cities.
Coordinating,
Because because most of the cities already have business licenses, and so I'm just thinking that they may very well already have some of that documentation, and we wouldn't, that was my interpretation. Bill, do you remember?
No,
Okay.
I take notes and.
Yeah, that's right.
I would encourage shall. It's very easy to get. You log on, you print out your proof of state registration, and you're good. That means that you are a registered business. So if we're wanting to license businesses specifically that have a registration. Now, I mean, that would be for an LLC or any of those. Now, I don't know if sole proprietors are registered with the state, which could be why May is
Oh,
there.
maybe.
Okay.
So I think that's,
Okay.
if state approval is a prerequisite before the county license is issued. And maybe that sentence just gets twisted a little bit, Bill, so that it's clear that if they need to have a state license, we will require a copy of it.
Okay.
I would just, you know, I keep thinking about the darn camel guy. Right? My whole thing reading this was where does that apply, how does that apply? And I now know that he does require a state license as an outfitter. Right, so,
And I think so. I think in terms of state licenses, what I went through. So as an insurance agent, long-term care insurance agent, and as a realtor, I'm required to be licensed by the state in both instances. So I think shall is important here, because if if their state license were to lapse, and they yet applied to Tillamook County for a renewal of their business license, I think we need to be able to catch that also.
yeah, I would just, so it doesn't look like it's a if we want to, but rather it's a if a license applies, then you shall.
Okay. I had a quick question on B, but I think I'm okay now, because it talks about a business, if a person engages in a business in more than one location, or in more than one business licensed under this ordinance, is that per location? So in other words, if he's got two locations, or if he is licensed for two separate businesses under one location, he would still need separate licenses.
That's the intent, David. And we'll look at that. That was the intent to
Okay.
discuss that.
So let's talk about that a little more. So, as an insurance agent, I was licensed by the state, worked out of my home, but I also conducted some business through Hudson Insurance, even though that really wasn't a secondary place of business for me. So would that mean that I would have needed a second license if I worked just occasionally, very occasionally, in two separate locations?
Hudson had a license and you were operating.
Okay. I wasn't operating under their license because I had my own long-term care specialty license, which Hudson did not have.
So
That's
then
why
would
I
you
was.
become a
I
mobile
don't know.
business?
Yeah. I
Yeah,
don't know.
or do you become a
It's
mobile
really
business?
complicated.
Yes.
Right.
So,
Yeah. Good
and
question.
again, these are personal experiences I had, so
Right.
I'm thinking in terms of that, how would I have to navigate this whole thing? And then under F, a person should do business with the county as an employee, agent, or representative of another person, unless either the principal employee, agent, or representative has a current valid county business license for the business. No matter where the principal offices of that business are situated. Okay, again, I have it highlighted, but I think the more I read it, the more it makes sense.
Yeah, if you were working out of Hudson's office, doing your business, then you wouldn't have to get one, I think is what
That
that's supposed
says.
to mean. Cause Cheryl and, Mr. Bush were, they have their license, and if you were an employee working for them.
And I wasn't.
Yeah, I don't know.
See, because this is interesting, because neither of them specialized or knew much about long-term care insurance is very specialized. And that's the only thing I was licensed to do, and that's the only thing that I did do. So they were allowing me, I'm not sure I should be saying this.
Just sit in their office.
To sit in their office, and utilize some of their files and other split commissions with them,
Mhm.
So I'm not sure how that would work. I don't know.
I don't know either, David, but I got a question mark on it.
Okay.
and we'll
All right.
look.
Okay, appreciate that very much. Okay. Good for 5?
Mhm.
Section 6, anything?
E, activities that qualify as hobbies or passive holding of property for investment purposes. Does that cover STRs? Because my rental property was, passive income, but it was a long-term rental, not a short-term rental, but my taxes, the form I filled out, it was called passive income. Because there is a question still, where do STRs fit in here?
Yep.
Because they're already paying for a short-term rental license and a short-term rental operator fee. So we already have them coming and going, and we know who they all are, and if the purpose was to have all registered businesses, we know where they are. Yeah.
I think we've always had that question of, are these people conducting a business in a residential community?
And if we require them to get
Yeah,
a business
that could-
license rather than a short-term rental license, do we just want to exempt short-term rentals because they pay a different license and not mess with it in here? And/or does the passive holding of property cover them because it's an investment property, therefore it would potentially have passive income? So,
Off the cuff, I would think they would have to pay, but it sounds like, at least preliminarily, you're wondering about whether you want to capture SDRs in this, since you're
In this.
already, since the county already makes them.
Already
pay
make
We already
a
licensed
separate
them.
license
Okay.
yeah.
and a separate fee schedule.
I think it's a good question, because it just brings up the issue of, are short-term rentals actually businesses operating in residential neighborhoods, as Commissioner Yamamoto just said, and we haven't licensed them that way, and Sarah said there are land use implications because when a house is built, then it's permitted as a residence,
Mhm.
and then thereafter, somebody applies for the short-term rental license, but in fact, then what we end up with are businesses being operated in residential neighborhoods. So I wonder if this is an opportunity to break in your new
That's
lawyer.
exactly what I was thinking. We have the first question for your new specialty counsel.
Is this an opportunity for us to start to adjust that lens and say, wait a second, these really are businesses, let's call them what they are.
Yeah.
We have to be careful there, but yeah, I think it's worth the
Yeah.
conversation.
I think
And
it's a
I
good
can tell you
question.
one thing about Mr. Cairns, who knows what, but he's gonna counsel you not to bring them under the land use umbrella.
Sure. Yeah, yeah.
To avoid that,
Okay.
Like,
because it makes them non-conform, it can make them a non-conforming use, and then they're there forever.
Yeah.
So
Right.
anyway, it's kind of off the subject,
Okay.
but they certainly are businesses, aren't they?
Well.
Yes.
Well,
Well.
so per this, right? Income means net income arising from any business as reportable to the state of Oregon for personal income, corporation excise, or income tax purposes.
So that's something I hadn't thought about. So this income that all these short-term rentals are taking in, that has to be reported as income on their taxes, state and federal
Sure
taxes?
it
Just
does.
as it did when I had a long-term rental, right? right? It's the same thing,
That's
it's still
correct.
income.
I had never thought about that.
Well, that was, I remember we had the question from the one person who said, if I don't rent more than 12 days, I don't have to report it on my income taxes. So there's a marker there.
I'd forgotten that.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know that to be the
I don't
case.
know that either, but that was what was stated to us in one of the hearings, was if they were less than, and I don't know if that was because it was less than a certain dollar amount that happened to hit for their house, or whether the 12 days was the marker, but they indicated there was a point at which they did not have to do taxes versus if they went a little further.
And so the point being that 95% of them or more, 99% of them do have to report their income. Of course they do, they're making money.
Yep.
So it sounds like that definition would bring an STR in within the umbrella of that business fee.
And I'm not sure we want to do that, but
Well,
let's
Yeah,
consider that.
Well, it's carried
Because
over.
then we're really sort of piling on to the short-term rentals.
That would be a double license. And so I think there definitely is a clarity whether a double license, because we do provide them a short-term rental license. And so, and that, yeah.
Well, maybe if we want to define them as businesses, because that's what they are, and that will help us in our future destination management, we could even change that to the short-term rental business license, what they currently have.
Yeah?
Okay. What,
So I'm not talking about double dipping, I'm
Okay.
talking about calling something what it
A
is.
Right.
special
So that-
license.
Special
Special
license.
business license.
Yeah.
It is, basically.
Yeah, I will look
Different
forward to
fee
guidance
schedule.
from an attorney who would say, you do want to do that for this reason, or you don't want to do that for
Yeah.
this reason,
Yeah.
so that we're all really clear.
and again, just from talking with him, he's very much in the camp of wanting it to be business license related, because it keeps them in some category that's more easily defended or managed.
Right.
I'm not
Yeah,
sure.
well, we'll look forward to his answer, that could be super helpful.
Okay, so I've got another couple of questions under item section 6. So, section 6C, garage sales, yard sales, blah, 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 I understand that. C1, I'm okay with, as long as they don't operate more than 5 such garage sales, yard sales, etc., within a calendar year. Number 2 bothers me. Any one such sale has a duration of more than 72 consecutive hours. Now, a garage sale might be open from 8 a.m. to noon, and then the next day is the same thing, 8 a.m. to noon. Are those consecutive hours, or are those individual time frames? The consecutive hours sort of concerns me a little bit, how that's worded.
Okay.
I don't think they would be open for 72 consecutive hours.
Thank you, yeah, I did not read it that way at all.
Yeah, that is interesting.
So that needs to be looked at.
24-hour-a-day garage.
72
Well, I
hours.
think a lot of garage sales open on Friday and go through Sundays.
Yeah,
They do
yeah.
shut down.
Yeah, but
Absolutely.
they're closed in between for, yeah.
Wow,
It's
So
the
we could
consecutive
say-
hours.
You could say 3 consecutive days rather than 72
Yeah.
consecutive hours, because I think
Right.
that's what we're getting
Yeah,
at.
I
That was the
agree.
intention,
I agree.
yeah.
And then D, I have it highlighted, but I think I'm okay now that I read it again. An organizer or participant in a special event, but only with respect to that particular special event. Okay,
Yeah.
I think I'm okay.
One-time fundraiser or something.
Okay.
Yeah, as opposed to an event coordinator who is coordinating lots of events.
And then, of course, here's where we got into the question earlier. The following must obtain a business license but are exempt from payment, and that includes nonprofit organizations. So that's what we discussed earlier. Okay. Okay. Section 7, any questions?
I had a copy on just whether we would obtain copies, which I think of local, state, or federal licenses, certificates, registrations, or permits. Are we getting copies? Are we clarifying that these are valid before we give a license?
That's where Commissioner Bell brought up the coordination portion.
Yeah.
We're coordinating with other agencies to make sure that all license, or required licenses are.
Right, and if they're not in another city, then it's
Yeah.
incumbent upon us to make sure that in fact,
Okay.
that we have those.
So going back up to B, so name and physical address of the business, where the business will be located. So this is where I always get into trouble with delivery services and things like that. You can't use your delivery address with a lot of these companies because UPS is one of those delivery services, and yet they have this thing called parcel post or something, where you ship it via UPS, but it goes to the post office, and unless you have the post office box listed, it gets shipped back. That's happened to me so many times. So I'm not sure, living in these small beach communities, you have to have a PO box. This is what I tell these companies. I live in Pacific City. If you're in one of these small coastal communities, if you want U.S. mail service, you have to have a PO box. And a lot of these companies go, I've never heard of that before. Well, it happens here in Oregon. It does.
So are you suggesting we need to add a mailing address?
Yeah, I think, yeah, I really do.
Because I think the purpose of having a physical address of the business is to denote that it is in the county and that
Yeah.
they, that they have one address, and so we're only charging them one license for the one address. So we just need to
If we
add
can
it.
add a mailing address.
Yeah.
That might also catch people that are trying to conduct businesses in Tillamook County that live outside the county.
Right.
The mailing address outside the county, like property tax statements and things like that. I don't know how, I'm not thinking through how that might work, but just to ask for both there, I think is good. And then F. Oh, no, let's go back to D. The date that business operations has or will commence. So we're not thinking of doing this in arrears at all, right?
No.
Previous time the business has been open. So that's why when Commissioner Bell mentioned that they would like to do this starting the first of the year, that makes the most sense to me. So we start, because even moving further on, even if they were to start a business mid-year and get a license, that first license would only be good for 6 months.
Yeah,
And then January 1st, they would owe another license.
One of my questions.
Yes, yes. So starting this at the first of the year would be ideal. And so that the date business operations has, and that really doesn't make any difference there, so that's good. I do have one other question on F. The average number of persons regularly employed. So depending on the business, is that daily, weekly, monthly, annually? And especially on the coast here, I mean, it's gonna be different in different times of the year.
maybe we need to define that.
Yeah, we need to define, number of persons regularly employed.
Because that's what our fees are
That's
based
how
on,
the fees
so,
are based, yes.
yeah, we do need to define
Yeah,
that.
that's a good point.
Yeah.
Seasonal, et cetera.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, anything else under 7? Anything under section 8? So I think of the dory guys. So if they are commercial, have a commercial license on a dory, or if they are charter. So they're gonna have to carry their license with
They
them.
have to carry their state marine board license and their captain's credential with them.
Okay,
So Jim
alright.
has a little plastic doodad about this
Yeah.
big, because he's required to have all of those on his person every time he's on his boat.
Okay.
So they do have
And
space.
they'll put them in a waterproof.
They'll put them in a
Package.
waterproof package with everything else they're required to have as a maritime business.
Okay, perfect. Okay, good. Anything else under section 8? Section 9, fees imposed. So this goes to A, 1 to 10, 11 to 30, over 31 employees. So how are we gonna determine number of employees on an annual basis or however?
Right.
And here again, I've got B underlined, but that's because, the January 1st start date, I think would be important here if we can get this initiated in the first of the year. That would help a lot of people. But I guess there's not gonna be any way we can, so if someone in 2023, in March or April of 2023 wants to start a business and they need a license, They would buy that license, but it would only be good until the end of that calendar year.
So if I wanna start my business in November, I'm gonna pay
Yep.
my full
Yep.
license fee for 1 month, and then I'm gonna pay it again for the following year?
Yep,
That seems a little,
I know.
should we have something that is,
Partial year?
partial year? I mean, interestingly, our fees are, you know, they're based on fraction thereof, for which the payment remains delinquent, but the payment is all or nothing. I'm not sure if that's, I don't know.
Yeah, let's talk about that. Could it be prorated?
It feels like it should be able to be prorated on a monthly basis, something,
Or-
otherwise,
Or at least quarterly.
yeah, something, whatever ends up being easiest to do, but something that recognizes that I'm gonna operate for two, like, otherwise I'm, you know, am I gonna wait to open my business, or I'm just gonna wait to tell you about it?
Right.
Right.
But that's where going back, date that business operations has or will commence.
Yeah, that's right.
That's where that goes back into place. Okay, all right. Anything else under section 9? Okay, section 10, anything?
We already talked about making that license administrator instead of fee administrator. And we talked about the license term and that ability to be prorated.
Okay, good. Section 11. Again, license administrator, I have, under 2. Okay, so license administrator shall issue a license renewal. So this is talking about a license renewal upon finding if the applicant has met all required federal, state, and local law. Okay, that's the coordination issue with other agencies.
Correct, and point
Okay.
1 had that same question,
Okay.
okay? I want to make sure that we are gonna check those things, that it's not gonna be a cursory, because there was a place where they could basically, they're also going to have a verification by signature that they promise they have it all, but I think it's in our best interest to make sure they have it all.
So under B4, so this is about denial, suspension, revocation of application. 4 says, the information supplied for the review does not indicate that the applicant has the special knowledge or skill required to perform the licensed activity. So is that going, who's gonna make that kind of a
I
determination?
saw that one too, David, I think that is a tough one.
That's
It
a
really-
tough one.
It makes it pretty subjective for somebody to come and say, you don't have the skill to do that,
And I can tell you what's gonna happen, it's gonna get kicked back to EDC, and they're gonna kick it up to the Board of Commissioners. And then we're gonna be responsible for determining that.
You wanna do that?
Well, would it be, I think we could amend the language to be, the applicant has the special licensure or certification or whatever. You know, I'm thinking if,
Such as an insurance agent, they have to be licensed,
Sure,
and you
or
gotta pass all these
contractor.
tests and
Right.
all that other stuff.
Yeah, or a contractor,
Okay,
or,
alright.
yeah,
Okay.
boat captain,
Okay.
you know, they have to have
Okay,
their.
So
license.
point 1 is
Okay.
that the licensee fails to meet requirements of or is doing business in violation of federal, state, or local laws. If I were a fishing guide and I didn't have my fishing license, I am now in violation of a state law.
Or captain's license.
Or my
yeah.
captain's license, then it's federal because that's Coast Guard.
Yeah.
If I'm a contractor and I don't have my contractor's license, I
Yeah.
would be in violation of state law,
Yeah.
right? So then I think the question 4 doesn't really, I mean, 1 covers that, right? We're not deciding personally if they know what they're doing.
Yeah.
We're looking to other licensing bodies or laws to do that, right? So does 1
So I think we
remove
can-
I
the
think
need for
I
4?
think we need more information on
Okay.
4 and
Okay.
5, because they go together.
And 5, yes, and so I've got 5 highlighted also, because so would endanger property or public health or safety. You can think of some of these logging companies out there, you know, people just can say, hey, you know, he's endangering my life out there.
OSHA.
Yeah. Yeah,
If it's the employee, but if it's some bystander,
yeah. So I think B4 and 5 really need to be looked at
a
here.
little more clarity.
Yeah, yeah. Because again, I can see this coming back to the Board of Commissioners.
That's where it does come.
So
Yeah.
that's the problem.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's the problem to me. So we need more clarity on B4 and 5, please. Okay, Okay, so CD, person whose application has been denied, suspended, or revoked may after 90 days, okay, this is where I have a few problems also, so D, E, and F. After 90 days from the date of denial, suspension, or revocation, may apply for a license or reinstatement. Is there a reason for a 90-day pause before they can reapply? Well, been denied, suspended, or revoked may, after 90 days from the date of denial, suspension, or revocation, apply for a license or reinstatement. And then that goes right into E, disqualification. I have highlighted, so whose license has been revoked for a total of 2 times within 1 year, or who has a total of 4 denials. And then disqualified from applying for a license or reinstatement is denied. Reinstatement for a period of 2 years from the date of denial. And then F, upon determining that a licensed activity presents an immediate danger to a person or property. That goes back to B, 7B5, or 8B5, or 9B5, or 11B5.
Yes.
Again. So I think this really needs more clarity here. So
What sections, David? I'm sorry.
this is still 11.
Okay,
11, D, E, and F.
okay.
So, again, a person whose application for business license that has been denied or whose license has been revoked for a total of 2 times within 1 year, is that a calendar year? Is that a rolling year period? I don't know, or a total of 4 denials. So once they reach 4 denials, then no matter how many times, or no matter what period of time that's within, they cannot reapply or be reinstated for a period of 2 years from the date of denial. Again, I think this just needs to be cleaned up here a little bit.
I think we need to decide what's our goal.
And,
You know, is our goal to get to yes because we want licensed businesses? Is our goal to penalize? And currently, we're set up to penalize rather than to get to yes.
Yeah, that's true.
And I think it's a question for us, and what are we trying to achieve with this? And I would suggest we're trying to achieve safe, appropriately licensed businesses, and that, you know, this might not be the approach we want. But we can think about that. There is also a point at which we have to cut our losses and say, this is not an operator that we want to have in our county.
Or, yeah, if this is somebody who is consistently unsafe, how many
Right.
chances do we want them to have?
Right. But
I'm
that,
guessing that this language comes from risk.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it really does go back to that determination of how are we deciding they're unsafe? Where is that coming from?
Yeah.
Because do we feel like we have a good solid guideline where we feel like, yeah, we can totally say this because we totally think we know what is unsafe. But you know, I think about things like Kayak Tillamook early in their life. At one point, they actually, I think, got fined by the Marine Board because they were having a kayak tour, and I think some people got into trouble of it, the people that were riding with them. And would that be unsafe? Would we deem that unsafe, or would we deem that, you know, operator error of a visitor? And how do we ultimately? So yeah, lots of head scratching.
Yeah, you know, I'm thinking about practical applications, and
Yeah.
some of them might exist now, some of them might not exist yet. Like, what if somebody wants to build a zip line in the forest? And
They do that, they do that.
Yeah.
2 of them in class. I bet there's a certification for that. I bet you can't just do that without. I mean, OSHA.
I would almost hope so.
Yeah, I would bet there's. I bet there's a requirement for that, but maybe not. There probably wasn't in the beginning.
So I wonder if Mike Bentley gets involved with that, because most of those are in the forest, and he's the OSHA guy now.
Because there's one, right, if you just go into Classic now, on the left-hand side, kind of by the Made in Oregon store, I think it's right in that
Yeah.
area, isn't it? It's just before
It's like
that.
an aerial course.
That is,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
I've always looked at that too and wondered, wow, you know,
Look at that, but,
right on
oh,
101. Fall off of there and go, oh my God, I don't. Okay, sorry, we're
We digress.
Section 12, appeal, anything?
No, but thank you for the clarity about it's gonna be us, and so we need more information to
Yeah.
know upon what we are making the decision.
No. Section 13, violations and penalties.
Person convicted of violating any of the provisions shall be punished by a fine not to exceed $600 for any one offense, each day constituting a separate offense. So if I don't get my license in time, there's a delinquency fee. Do I also have an offense where I could be fined an additional $600 a day for every day I'm late? And again, I think there's a question here about what we're trying to get to. We're trying to get to happy businesses with a valid licenses, or are we trying to penalize someone? So it just felt like a very high dollar amount, and each day constituting a separate offense. So I don't have my, I guess once it's revoked, each day doesn't count anymore because, yeah, just little clarity there. I think it felt very punitive and a little unclear to me.
Okay, so I am clear through the end of this. Any other comments on 13, 14, or 15?
What if I have C, I say, what does this mean? Abatement, any business which is established, operated, moved, altered, enlarged, or maintained, contrary to licensing requirements shall be and is hereby declared to be unlawful and a public nuisance and may be abated as such. Can someone tell me what we're thinking there?
Bill?
There's a separate abatement ordinance that you gotta go through.
Oh gee.
It's a good question. Let me look at that. That is a really good question. That may be a little bit much.
I was like, I don't even know what that
Yeah,
means.
that would
Maybe
be-
abated as such.
That means tearing it down. At least, my rudimentary understanding of our abatement ordinance is we tear it down. We're not gonna do that.
Right, so when I establish a restaurant and I don't get a license, so I am contrary to a license requirement, are you
We're
gonna
gonna
come
tear
tear it
down the
down?
building.
You're gonna declare me unlawful and a public nuisance and tear me
No,
down?
You're gonna get your license. You're gonna pay your $100.
Okay, thank you.
For your 600 a day.
Or my 600 a day until I get a license, which by the way, I've gotta wait for the public health inspector and I gotta wait for all of these other people, and at $600 a day, you should have just torn me down. Cause now I'm so deep in the hole and I got nothing. So I again, just what's our purpose and intention here?
Okay, then I hope you've read D, legal proceedings by county attorneys.
Standard language.
Okay.
Seeking injunctive relief to enforce the provisions.
These damn attorneys, I tell you, you can't understand a word they say, right?
Okay, and
We're
then we
These
had,
were- These were modeled after city ordinances, so,
Yeah,
so
I know.
that may be,
Yeah.
part of the question that you bring up, maybe, there are a lot of different kinds of businesses, like you mentioned, people guiding and things like that, most cities, don't have to deal with those kinds of issues, so,
right,
that'd be worth some more thought with Terry, I think, to
Yeah.
see if we can do something about
Okay.
that.
so,
I'll follow up with Terry before you
Okay.
get to your next workshop, is that the idea?
That would be
That'd be great.
Okay.
I had a question on the form about the applicant's residential address. We asked for their business name, business address, et cetera, and then we asked for their personal address. Is that a necessary thing? Are we getting into information that we don't really need, or won't really be using because we have a business address for them?
I don't think asking for a residential address is that wrong.
I'm trying to think why we would need it.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think why we would need it, and then we have information that we don't necessarily need, that we need to be safeguarding potentially. Some people take their personal location as their personal privacy, and if I have some place where I am doing my business and I am giving you everything about my business, and I'm paying you for the place where I'm doing my business, I don't think you need to know where I live. Now, everybody in the world knows where I live, it's fine, but there are people
Me
from,
too.
yeah, there are people for whom I think that might just seem like an odd question, so I just wanna make sure we really need it for some reason.
Okay.
And then there's this little teeny tiny, tiny print that says, please attach a copy of your insurance certificate. Just seems like maybe that could be a little bigger. Or maybe a checkbox or something that draws your eye to that, because it seemed like a little subheader to me that I might have missed.
Okay,
Okay,
perfect.
great,
Look at that, we're pretty right along. I brought everything so I could read from here. If I needed to, I might not even need to.
thank you.
Okay,
Excellent
so,
feedback.
so you want to discuss the Garibaldi building?
But it doesn't matter, we can do either one. I mean, I've got time now. We did that fast.
Mine will be quick.
Okay.
So I got this letter from the Vietnam War Memorial Fund people, and they're developing a Vietnam War Memorial on, I believe, on the state capitol grounds. 14 counties have already contributed to this project, everywhere from $10,000 down to $500. Whoever did this email did a lot of research. Talks about veterans in Tillamook County. We've got 2,472 veterans in Tillamook County, 1,144 Vietnam War veterans. So I would just think it would be appropriate if Tillamook County were to make some sort of a donation to this fund.
Did they have a timeline for that? Because I feel like we got that email last year too. Like this, they've been working on this for a while. I didn't know if they had a timeline for when they were gonna
I
go.
don't recall this last year, although I don't read all the emails, so, you know. These are the funding goals for 2022.
Okay.
So,
I think I would have a question as to when they hope to construct.
okay.
And whether, when they say funding goes for 2022, what's the full cost of the project, when they hope to construct? Is this something as commissioners that, given that we are not supremely flush as a county, we would do over a number of years, a contribution each year? If this is the 2023 goals, will they be coming back in 24 and 25? And, you know, just kind of a little bit greater understanding of the full project would be helpful for me.
That's fair.
Yeah, I think it would be nice to tie our contribution, if we make one, to tie it to Vietnam veterans. Like, what if we contributed $1,144?
Yeah, yeah.
I think that would be nice.
Okay. Okay. Let me get more information. Okay, thank you for that.
Perfect.
Okay.
So I had, I think it was Catherine Wendell reach out to me. She is in Garibaldi and working very hard to get Garibaldi recognized as a Coast Guard city. And Coast Guard cities are recognized by the Coast Guard when they do significant support and recognition of the Coast Guard members and the Coast Guard station in their city. And so she has a whole list of things that the city of Garibaldi has done over the past few years, recognizing and supporting their Coast Guard staff. And so what she's asking of us is a letter of support for her application.
Sure.
Okay, I will get back with her and we'll get us a draft. And I believe it's due November 1st, so we have a little bit of time here, so.
I think that's the way whenever I drive through Garibaldi, I always go by the station there and look out on the bay and see their dock and their the boats. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
We rely on the Coast Guard immensely.
We do rely on the Coast Guard immensely here. The life-saving service that they provide is really, really critical. And so if we can have a nice big sign as you enter Garibaldi that says this is a Coast Guard city, that would be a recognition of our Coast Guard members and all that they do for us. So it would be a good thing.
Perfect. So you're gonna come up with a letter for us?
I will.
Perfect.
I will. Yeah, she's giving
Okay.
me the language and I'll put something together for us. So.
Great. Okay. Anything else? Other topics?
I have a couple things.
Sure.
One, the EDC also needs a letter. I got an email from Terry yesterday, and I'm sorry, sitting here, I realized I can't remember the name of the program, but there's a program that Ariane Colombo has recommended Tillamook County for, an economic development program that is, has a comes with a significant budget. They have a great plan. The EDC would combine with the SBDC. They work together on this. They just got the information from the state of Oregon about how to apply, and I think it's the end of this month, like maybe it's the 30th, and they're supposed to have 3 letters of recommendation. So if it's fine with you guys, I'll draft something and we'll have it for our meeting next week.
Yeah, well, that sounds good.
Good. I want to give you an HR update. We just today got the final reference check and the background check back for Jody. So Jody is officially checked out.
Yay!
Woo!
Did
She's cleared.
she
Yes.
accept an offer, or has it got to that stage?
She accepted the offer, and then the offer was contingent on the background and reference check.
Okay.
So that's a green light, go ahead as far as I know.
Yeah.
And also we have started with Brianna Stevens. So Brianna Stevens is acting in interim. She's helping us, she's a contractor. She's helping us for 25 hours a week. And she's already working with the HR staff. And I think she's online. If she has time, she could check in and introduce herself to my fellow commissioners right now. Brianna, are you at a place where you can join us for a minute?
Hello, yeah, give me just a second.
Sure. So Brianna is working for us remotely. She had to have a background check in order to have access. We got that done. IS shipped her a computer because they wanted her to use our own material, our own system. So she now has email address access, and she has a computer. I think she's getting access to all the HR stuff, of course, but also to ADP. I think Sean needs to still get her access to ADP. We have a list of stuff we've asked her to work on. Rachel and I were working on it while you two were gone, so I'll send you that list. And yeah, so it's looking good at the moment. Everybody's excited about working with Brianna. The HR staff have already told me, oh my gosh, she's amazing, and I agree. And we're looking forward to bringing Jody on, and we hope to have some overlap. Brianna told us she'd be glad to do stuff like review the employee handbook and work on some projects. And
Yeah, we have some things that have been hanging out there for a long time that we just need to knock out and give Jody the right footing to begin.
yeah,
Super.
yeah.
Thank
So
you. Coming together in HR, I love it.
yeah.
Terrific. Okay.
Brianna, do you still need a minute?
Yeah, for some reason my camera doesn't want to turn on.
That's
But yeah, so I'm Brianna Stevens, and Mary Faith gave me a lovely introduction, but yeah, I've been doing human resources for about 12 years, and know Aaron Frost, and Aaron connected me with you guys, and yeah, have a background doing a lot of the implementation stuff, and so I'm excited to help and have had the opportunity to meet the team in the last week, and just kind of jumping in and helping where I can. So
Thank you for being here, Brianna. I appreciate it very much. I'm hoping the view of our Board of Commissioners meeting room isn't scaring you.
We're the tiny people, way down at the end.
It's kind of temporary for us, we hope.
Brianna worked with Aaron Frost at OSU.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Super.
All right, well, thank you, Brianna. We're very excited to have you on board and look forward to working with you during this transition, and hopefully on some special projects as well.
Yep.
thank you.
Thanks so much for being here. Okay, anything else?
That's all for me.
That's all for you. Oh, gosh.
I know.
I know. Where was I? What was I doing? Where did I get? Think of updates. I will be out of the office October, probably half of the 4th, the 5th, and half of the 6th. I'm going to go sit on a panel at the League of Oregon Cities on the House Bill 4123. process. So it will be taking the meeting remotely that day, because we do have a Board of Commissioners meeting, it's a Wednesday, but I should be able to take that remotely.
Okay.
And then I just won't be, I think I would have to come to board briefing late on October 5th.
Okay.
Because I think the panel gets over at 2:30.
Okay.
So we can see what we have that day for board briefing, and you all can go forward and do good work without me if you need to.
Okay. Okay. And so I forgot to mention this earlier, but the last Wednesday of this month, I believe, so I was scheduled for the Oregon Telecommunications Conference in Ashland Thursday and Friday, so I was gonna be fine, although I was gonna miss the board briefing. But now OVAC has put together an in-person meeting the day before, Wednesday afternoon. So it's a 5-hour drive, more than a 5-hour drive to Ashland. So I told Isabel that I would only be able to make maybe the first hour of a board meeting. So Debbie, I think she told you that, we need to keep that work meeting short. And I will probably just do that from home.
Okay.
And then take off immediately when the board meeting is over, because
So
it gives me an extra half an hour of drive time.
So that's the 28th.
Yeah, I believe, is that it?
Yeah,
Yes.
Okay.
yeah, okay, that's the day of, yeah, okay.
So I just wanted to let everyone, I apologize for that, but these last minute meetings somehow keep making it on the agenda. So.
Okay. And are you, either of you or both of you going to the District 7 meeting on the 30th in Vernonia?
Yes.
Okay, and I will be late because I have an Oregon Coast Trail landowner meeting from 10 to 11:30, so I'm gonna try to go to Vernonia. I think I found a place with Wi-Fi other than our little building, which apparently doesn't have Wi-Fi other than the Columbia County hotspot they're bringing.
Oh, really?
I didn't know.
that.
Yeah, it's a cabin in the woods,
Okay.
of Vernonia. So, yeah, so that, anyway, I will be there that day, but I will probably arrive about 11:30. Or I may get there and say hello to everybody and then figure out where I can get Wi-Fi on that premise.
Wow, okay.
Yeah.
Wi-Fi, wow. Very little Wi-Fi.
Well, it's Vernonia, so, yeah, it's, you're kind of,
I have something for us to consider.
yeah.
Rachel was telling me that we were talking about how can we learn more about what each other is doing. So for example, at the library board meeting, I gave a little report like, commissioners update, and they said, well, what's happening with broadband and what are we doing with broadband? And I said, I will check with Commissioner Yamamoto and get back to you next month. And I'm sure that you guys wonder what's going on with HR and, we're all working on things that we don't always know what each other's working on. So what would you consider, and you don't have to answer me now, but I thought one approach to that would be that we give updates in this meeting on our liaison responsibilities. Because we kind of do that, but we don't do it intentionally and thoroughly.
Right.
So I'll just ask you to consider it, because
I think that's a good idea.
it'd be a good way to know more about what each other's working on.
We're gonna have to keep our agenda items to like an hour. We can keep the second hour maybe open for
Correct.
updates on our liaisons, so, yeah. I think that could be good.
Okay.
Yeah, because it is frustrating sometimes that
It is.
we just
It
don't know, and I get those questions too when I'm out and about things that are not on my list, and I'm like, darn good question, couldn't tell you, unless it's arrived to the board meeting for some particular reason,
Right.
um,
Yeah.
So, well, and, yeah.
Let's share that.
Let's do it,
Okay,
yeah,
all right,
yeah,
all
very
right.
good.
So next Wednesday, I think would be a good place to start. I think we're all gonna be here for the next board briefing.
What's next Wednesday? It's the
28th.
28th. You're not
Oh,
gonna
next
be here.
Wednesday's the 20th.
That's a great time to start because
It's
you
my
won't be
birthday.
here. Oh,
And you're gonna be gone.
That's all right. We'll have cake without him.
We'll have cupcakes with Debbie and you're on. the
Yeah.
road.
Oh, you can't have cupcakes without me. Oh my
We'll
God.
wait, we'll wait.
Happy birthday, though.
Happy birthday early.
That is next.
Oh my gosh, things are coming fast. Can we talk about the leadership team meeting too then, while we're
I
all
thought I was
sitting
gonna be
here?
here for 2 full weeks before I had to go.
Uh-uh.
Oh my God. Okay, sorry.
Just the goal to bring it back in person for the leadership team meeting, and perhaps seeing if we can't get the library for October 3rd, which would be the next leadership team meeting, and just really encouraging everyone to be there. Let's do donuts, let's do, whatever, just to try to begin to build back. Oh, that's right, she's gonna be here in November. I was gonna say Jody will be here in November for that one. So, but it would be nice if we started just really encouraging people to come back together and to work with that relationship base that I think, a certain amount of us are just kind of missing that people to people. It's like what we got to do last night, people to people.
I'm certainly willing. I'm concerned that there will be people who are, put out about having to go to the library. But maybe not. Maybe that won't happen at all. But I think that Rachel said that our meeting room should be available by the 1st of November. So if we could wait. If we wait, then we could have it right here in the building. But I'm willing to try the library.
I think we should, I really do.
Rachel, do you have thoughts on whether to shoot for the 3rd at the library or whether to wait for the 1st for our meeting room?
I think you can go either way. I think it's really your preference, as you and I have been talking about other things to kind of do a reboot on the leadership team structure and the purpose and all of that. So it might be a good idea sooner than later, just starting to get people to reconvene. And then maybe we could be bouncing some of those ideas off for the leadership team next year. But I think you can go either way, we have lots of time.
And Rachel, it's not that I don't trust the contractors to be done by the 1st of November, but I think that,
I'm pretty sure they're gonna be done.
Really? Okay.
Carpet's going in this week,
okay,
and AV is scheduled the week of October 10th, 11th and 17th.
okay.
And then we have a week of setup, testing, stuff like that. So I don't know what the holdup would be at this point unless some of the AV equipment didn't come in, but they're scheduling work, so.
Okay, all right. So personally, I still think if we can get the library on the 3rd, I think that would, and we need to entice people and.
Because it does also require technology to be brought to the library for the remote piece of it.
Well, they have a system there.
They do, it's a pretty good system.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's been upgraded recently.
Okay,
I don't
oh,
think we
good.
have to-
Oh, yeah, I didn't realize that we'd gotten the upgrades. Because I know we did that as ARPA, they were gonna do some upgrades, so.
So if we can.
Okay, I'll find
I
out.
would love to do it on.
Yeah, I'll find out.
I really would.
Yeah.
Okay.
Joel, you're listening, but it doesn't affect you anyway, whether or not we're in person.
Because we'll have hybrid.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's great. I mean, there was a time when we had pretty good attendance at these meetings and robust discussion. So I think if that's an option, I think it's great.
Okay, great.
I don't know if you guys want me to continue to chair or if you'd rather have somebody who's in the room. I mean, this is kind of something that I took on, and I think I kind of inherited it from Bill, more out of just, nobody knows what to do. To continue to, but if you'd rather have someone who's in the room, I totally understand that too.
Oh, I hadn't thought about that, but we can talk about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I think, if we can, it'd be nice to talk about it as a leadership team, and maybe that's what you meant, yeah. Yeah, because I think hopefully this will be something that leaders will find valuable and want to kind of help shape into something that would, perhaps be valuable. I know it was before COVID, and then we just kind of lost that somewhere. Okay, thank you.
And so is October 3rd, I've got an inquiry about, are we gonna have Halloween trick-or-treaters in the building, which we haven't done for a couple of years because of COVID. So do we want to leave that up to leaders to decide on October 3rd, or is that enough time?
It should be enough time to decide what you think.
Okay, so everybody please come on October 3rd, and we'll decide whether or not to have trick-or-treaters in the building or set something up out front like we did last year, which worked okay, but I think it's really fun to have kids in the building.
So I think, we're not gonna make this a hard and fast rule, but, leadership team meeting is kind of required attendance. Unless you have a good excuse. And we're gonna make Bill the hall monitor.
And I hope we can make it valuable.
Yes.
I mean, I think
Yeah.
that's the key
And it used
piece.
to be.
Right, and I think that's the key piece, and I'm not, you know, I think I've only come in during COVID, I've only had online leadership team meeting. And it feels like every other online meeting where we probably are multitasking while we wait to hear our name, which unfortunately means we're not necessarily really engaging at that same level. So I think that's one of the hopeful pieces about bringing it back to in-person is that we will really be fully present with one another, and we'll, you know, we want to know what leaders want from it so that it is valuable, so that we don't have to force people to be there because they want to be, because they're really getting something out of it. Maybe this time it's just a free donut, but we'll hope they'll come for free donuts.
Yeah, and if we have it at the library, you know, we would also have a remote option. So if somebody just
Yes.
simply can't be there.
Agreed, I agree.
Yeah.
Right, but the encouragement to have people be in person
Yes.
and to, you know, have that opportunity. And who knows what free things might be available in the room beyond a donut that you won't get to know about if you're not there.
Rachel, do you have something else?
Yeah, I was just gonna add to that, some of the ideas that Aaron and I are kicking around are making it more worthwhile. So instead of just doing, you know, the noteworthy topics or the roundtable updates, which I think we do need to continue with, is having, you know, trainers come in or motivational speakers or something that people can get something out of that's just not in their routine work, that's bolstering everybody as a leader. And, you know, if monthly is too often and that's just too much for people, then we have a more robust meeting less frequently. But those are some of the things that we're kicking around.
Yeah, I like that. It seems like the perfect time to have some kind of leadership training. And if we could come up with a series that it would, you know, be, I don't know, an hour of leadership training once a month, or, you know, something like that, some kind of a series that people do find valuable, I think that would be great.
Yeah. Yeah, so be present at the October meeting because we'll talk about what are people's ideas, what would they like to see, what would they find value in. And we can continue that conversation in November, but let's plan to kick off as part of leadership agenda to talk about that, to really re-engage with all of us in planning a time and a space that would be valuable to us as leaders.
I agree.
And not only Halloween, I'm back on the holidays.
Oh, yeah.
Not only Halloween, but we also need to decide what we want to do for Christmas. If
Yes,
anything.
we do.
Yeah, these guys are rolling their eyes at me. Christmas is right around the corner.
Well, no, I'm not, because last year it snuck up on us, and then I was suddenly trying to find candy at the very last minute. I think that was Christmas, because I don't bake. We all know I don't cook anything, and I don't bake either. Yes, yeah, Rachel.
So in purging some of our old files, I came across a really thick picture book, one of those kind of narrow rectangle ones. And it had pictures of some really, what apparently used to be pretty cool parties back in the day. And I think the ones that we've had just in my tenure in A&B were nice, but I think we can do a lot bigger events.
I
For our
agree.
employee recognition, as we're, you know, trying to boost morale and have more employee recognition. I think we can do larger events, so I would just throw that out there. I think we should do something. I think we need to start the planning now, and I think it needs to be, we need to be sensitive to who we're asking to do what, because everybody volunteered, well, some people volunteer and it's left for just a couple people to do. And so just be mindful of that. That happens every single year. And then there's resentment and those sorts of things. So I think we should do it. I think we should start it.
Thank you.
Awesome, thank you.
I agree with that. So how do we get by the health department?
We buy
He
food.
asks in a public meeting.
Well, I don't think the health department is on, are they?
I'm the liaison to the health department. I'm sitting right here. We buy our food.
It was so nice when it was potlucks and everything. Oh my God, it was just great. It really was.
Yeah. Well, and you can have potluck if you have no outside people.
Right.
So if nobody's including their families, if it is just staff,
Employees.
just employees, you can have potluck. You just can't have
I didn't know
any
that.
outside people.
Yeah, we can't have.
Spouses or anything.
Nope. Once you add spouses, then you can't not
Hey,
one.
I see an opening here.
They're the
Yeah,
public.
they're the public.
I see an opening here. Okay. All right.
Okay,
Anything else?
not for me. Not that I can think of, I'll think of it tomorrow.
I'm exhausted.
Oh, I'm out of the office on Friday, that would be the good thing. Out of the office on Friday, so. And I will not have cell coverage.
Okay, so do we have any staff or public comments? You've been listening to all of us cackle and babble here. Anything? Hearing nothing. Okay, time being 3:16 p.m., we will adjourn this Commissioners Board briefing. Thank you, everyone.